Thank you for joining us on MNB World News Mongolia, where we bring you the latest stories and updates from across the nation and beyond. I'm Batsirin Namshir. With winter intensifying energy demand in Ulaanbaatar and Mongolia, we are reminding you to conserve electricity by unplugging appliances when idle. This straightforward practice not only saves energy but also aids in cost management during peak periods. Your cooperation is appreciated during this critical time. Our top stories for News Mongolia. Snowstorms and extreme temperatures forecasted. Government of Mongolia announces measures to address dzud risks. Foreign Minister Batsitsik participating in Human Rights 75 high-level event in Geneva. For the news, stay tuned. Mongolia is currently grappling with harsh winter conditions as snowstorms and cold temperatures have swept through various regions since December 13th. The western and central parts of the country have already experienced heavy snowfall and snowstorms impacting daily life and transportation. Now let's take a look at a report from the National Agency for Meteorology and Environmental Monitoring. According to meteorological reports, the situation is expected to intensify in the coming days, particularly in the western, Gobi and east provinces, where some snowstorms are anticipated. Residents are advised to take precautions and stay updated on the weather forecasts to ensure their safety. In addition, the Khupskal mountainous region, Idur and Tes River basins are bracing for extreme temperature fluctuations. Nighttime temperatures are expected to plummet to a bone-chilling -41 degrees Celsius, while daytime temperatures will hover around -32 degrees Celsius. This drastic temperature difference poses additional challenges for residents and local authorities, necessitating extra measures to protect against the frigid conditions. Meanwhile, in Hangai, Khinti mountainous areas, Terilj and the Onung River basin, daytime temperatures will reach a relatively milder -27 degrees Celsius, providing some respite during the day. However, nighttime temperatures are expected to drop to -32 degrees Celsius, highlighting the persistence of cold weather throughout the affected regions. The public is urged to stay informed about weather forecasts, road conditions and safety guidelines during this period of severe weather. Authorities are closely monitoring the situation and are prepared to respond to any emergencies that may arise due to the ongoing winter weather. In a press briefing on Tuesday, the Deputy Prime Minister of Mongolia addressed the severe winter conditions gripping the nation, revealing that 70% of the country's territory is now under dzud risk. To mitigate the impact on livestock and remote herders, the government has taken some resilience measures.
As a response to the dzud risk, it has been decided to temporarily halt the export of bran and feed, crucial resources for livestock survival, by the government. This measure aims to ensure that essential feed supplies remain within the country to support local herders during this challenging period. In addition, the government will initiate subsidized deliveries of feed to remote herders at a discounted price. This initiative is designed to provide much-needed support to those in areas most vulnerable to the harsh winter conditions. The discounted pricing is expected to alleviate the financial burden on herders and safeguard the well-being of their livestock.
Our latest evaluation reveals that a substantial 70% of our country is at high risk of severe cold dzud. It is essential to understand that the implications of dzud are not confined to herders and residents of remote areas alone. The animal herding and agriculture sector holds profound significance for every citizen of our nation. Our collective responsibility demands that we prioritize assistance to herders and take decisive action to mitigate the potential consequences. The government is diligently executing all necessary measures, including the accumulation of feed resources and their strategic distribution to provinces facing a heightened risk of severe weather conditions.
As the severe winter weather persists, the public is urged to stay informed about weather forecasts, adhere to travel restrictions, and follow safety guidelines. The government continues to closely monitor the situation and remains prepared to respond to any emergencies arising from the ongoing winter weather.
Now let's take a look at Mongolia's current affairs.
Japan's ambassador to Mongolia, Igavahara Masaru, presented his letter of credence to President Russell on December 12. President Russell lauded the development of Mongolia-Japan relations under the Special Strategic Partnership for Peace and Prosperity, emphasizing shared values. He congratulated the recent celebration of the 50th anniversary of diplomatic ties. President Russell expressed confidence in Ambassador Igavahara Masaru, appointed during the new Japanese era Reiwa, anticipating strengthened relations. Ambassador Igavahara pledged to advance human-centered cooperation, focusing on trade, economic development, culture, and education. Both sides affirmed a commitment to deepen Mongolia-Japan cooperation in regional and international matters through intensified high-level exchanges. In Geneva, Switzerland, the Human Rights 75 high-level event marking the 75th anniversary of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights is taking place on December 11 to 12. Over 130 countries, including the Mongolian delegation led by Foreign Minister Batsitsag Batmokh, are taking part. The event, organized by the UN Human Rights Office, aims to review past achievements, renew commitments to human rights principles, and expedite universal fulfillment over the next 25 years. Foreign Minister Batsitsag announced Mongolia's Shri Fohi initiative addressing challenges for men and boys and committing to adopt the national program for ensuring human rights. The event includes commitments from various stakeholders, including national human rights organizations, civil society, and the private sector.
Now let's take a look at the currency exchange rates provided by Mongol Bank. Now let's take a look at international news from our partner agencies. Poland's newly elected Prime Minister Donald Tusk vowed Tuesday that his government will be a stable ally of the United States and NATO, and that it would work to mobilize the Western world to keep helping Ukraine.
In a wide-ranging inaugural speech to Parliament, Tusk called on the nation's fractious political class to unite, saying it cannot afford divisions at a time when Russia is waging a war of aggression across Poland's border in Ukraine, which many fear could spread if Moscow prevails. The address was attended by Ukraine's ambassador and former Polish presidents, including the anti-communist freedom fighter Lecha Walenska.
I can no longer hear some European politicians from other Western countries saying something about being tired of the situation in Ukraine. They are tired. They say it to President Zelensky's face that they have no strength left, that they are exhausted. I want to say that Poland's task, the new government's task, but also the task of all of us, is to loudly and firmly demand full determination from the entire Western community to help Ukraine in this war. I will do this from day one.
Tusk was elected by Parliament on Monday and faces many challenges, from restoring democratic standards in his own country, working for the release of European Union funding frozen due to democratic backsliding by his predecessors, and facing the implications of the war just across Poland's and European Union's eastern border in Ukraine. Tusk said it hurts him to hear that Ukraine's President Vladimir Zelensky has to keep trying to persuade world leaders about the need to continue supporting Kyiv's struggle against Russia. Ukraine's troubles are deepening as winter sets in and allies are growing tired of funding its defense. Tusk's speech came a day after lawmakers chose him as the new prime minister after rejecting the former prime minister Mateusz Morawiecki of the Law and Justice Party. Tusk, a centrist leader who was previously prime minister from 2007 to 2014, returns to power after nearly a decade as the head of a broad alliance. He finally takes power nearly 2 months after the October 15th election, which was won by a coalition of parties that ran on separate tickets but promised to work together under Tusk's leadership to restore democratic standards eroded during the last 8 years of law and justice rule and improve ties with allies. He also introduced the ministers in his new cabinet, and the new government will face a confidence vote in the afternoon. They are to be sworn in Wednesday. Poland's President Andrzej Duda, an ally of the former government, had delayed the power transition as long as he could. He was on a visit to Switzerland on Tuesday and didn't attend Tusk's speech.
Thousands of protesters gathered Tuesday in the capital of the European Union, calling for better public services, salaries and living conditions. The protest in downtown Brussels took place during EU negotiations over the new Stability and Growth Pact, which aims to limit debt and a deficit for member countries.
Nations seeking to spend their way out of crisis would instead implement a set of economic policies, such as budget cuts and tax increases, but critics say the policy known as austerity won't work. The European Trade Union Confederation, which represents 45 million members, claims the planned reinstatement of the Stability and Growth Pact will force 14 member states to cut a combined 45 billion euros or $49 billion from their budget in the next year alone.
Workers need social measures now. A lot of workers are victims of inflation, of the energy crisis, and before that, who suffered from COVID. So if nothing is done, if we don't give them anything, they will lean towards the extremes. They will send a message of anger, and we cannot let that happen. What we are saying to Europe is do something, hear the workers, and offer them some perspectives.
People deserve to live in dignity, to have decent salaries, to have good working conditions, and they are not getting it from most governments in Europe. And there's austerity measures being imposed, and we demand fair taxation so that there is enough money to go to the public services, and all European citizens, all European workers can live with dignity.
Inflation in Europe dropped more than expected, 2.4% in November, the lowest in over 2 years, bringing some relief to households severely hit by the economic effects of the coronavirus pandemic and the war in Ukraine. But the economy has stalled this year, even shrinking to 0.1% in the July to September quarter, according to Eurostat, the 27-nation bloc statistic agency. The Stability and the Growth Pact, which has often proved difficult to enforce and has served as a source of tension, was suspended during the COVID-19 pandemic but is set to be reactivated in 2024. Current rules stipulate that member states' total public debt must not exceed 60% of their gross domestic product, and their annual deficit must be kept below 3%. According to the latest European Union figures, the highest rates of government debt to GDP were in Greece with 166.5%, Italy with 142.4%, and 4 other nations also breaking the 100% mark.
The European Parliament on Tuesday remembered a young woman who died in police custody in Iran last year during a ceremony at which she and an Iranian human rights group were officially awarded the EU's top human rights prize. Parliament President Roberta Metsola deplored that even part of Mirza Amini's family was not allowed to attend the event for the awarding of the Sakharov Prize at the EU legislature's plenary.
Amini, 22-year-old, died in September 2022, 3 days after she was arrested by Iran's morality police for allegedly violating Iran's mandatory headscarf law. While authorities said she suffered a heart attack, Amini's supporters said she was beaten by police and died as a result of her injuries. The European Union said her death triggered a women-led movement in Iran, and representatives of the Women Life Freedom movement in Iran were in Strasbourg, France, to attend the solemn ceremony. The 27-nation European Union has imposed sanctions on Iranian officials and organizations, including ministers, military officers, and Iran's morality police, for human rights abuses over the protests.
This year's Sakharov Prize serves as a tribute to all the brave and defiant women, men, and young people in Iran who, despite coming under increasing pressure, are continuing the push for change. Women like Afsun Najavi and Mercedes Shakinkar, who are with us today to accept the prize on behalf of the Women Life Freedom movement. Women who have been forced to leave their country to be able to continue their fight for truth and for justice. Women who have been subjected to threats and harassment and sentenced in absentia. Women who are here, still standing strong, who stand up for equality, for dignity, for freedom in Iran.
Amini's death triggered protests that spread across the country and rapidly escalated into calls for the overthrow of Iran's 4-decade-old Islamic theocracy. Authorities responded with a violent crackdown in which more than 500 people were killed and over 22,000 others were detained, according to rights groups. The European Union award named for Soviet dissident Andrei Sakharov was created in 1988 to honor individuals of groups who defend human rights and fundamental freedoms. Sakharov, a Nobel Peace Prize laureate, died in 1989.
Now let's take a look at some global current affairs.
Dutch King Willem Alexander and Queen Maxima officially welcomed South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol and his wife Kim Kong-hee on Tuesday. The ceremony marking the start of the South Korean leader's state visit to the Netherlands was held at Amsterdam's Dam Square. President Yoon also laid a wreath at the National Monument in the square. The state visit will last 3 days. During the trip, Yoon will hold a meeting with Dutch Prime Minister Mark Rutte and visit both chambers of the country's parliament as well as Dutch technology companies.
Now let's take a look at the weather forecast for world's major cities. Well, that's all for today. Thank you for staying with us. We'll see you on Thursday with more news and updates. Goodbye.